Starting your day with purposeful seeking of God is not just a suggestion, it is a principle that can transform the very trajectory of your life. Too many people wake up and immediately allow the world to dictate the tone of their day. They check their phones, scroll through social media, respond to emails, and rush into tasks without ever pausing to acknowledge the one who holds their life in his hands. But imagine for a moment what it would be like if the first thought in your mind, the first action of your day, and the first conversation of your heart were all directed toward God. When you make the conscious choice to seek Him first, you are declaring that you will not be moved by circumstances, that your foundation is built on something unshakable, and that your day will not be dictated by the pressures around you. This act of seeking is not about ritual, it's about intentionality. It's about saying, God, before I speak, before I act, before I face anyone or anything today, I want your guidance, your presence, and your power in my life. And when you begin your day with that mindset, everything changes. Your thoughts align with divine wisdom. Your heart opens to opportunities that you might have otherwise missed. Your spirit becomes sensitive to the promptings of the holy, and you find yourself making choices that are not reactive, but proactive, choices that lead to life, to growth, to blessings. Too often, we underestimate the power of the early morning. It is in those quiet, unguarded moments that your mind is most open, your heart is most receptive, and your spirit is most attuned. Starting your day with God allows you to lay down the anxieties, the doubts, and the distractions before they take root. It is a declaration that no matter what comes, you are walking in alignment with a higher purpose. And alignment with God brings favor that cannot be manufactured, peace that cannot be bought, and clarity that cannot be earned. You also begin to see that seeking God first transforms ordinary routines into sacred moments, even mundane tasks, driving to work, making breakfast, sending emails, become infused with purpose when they are approached with God's guidance. Your attitude shifts from merely surviving to actively thriving. Your words carry life, your decisions carry wisdom, and your interactions carry grace. This is the power of beginning your day in His presence. It is the difference between walking through life with uncertainty and walking with confidence, between facing the day with fear and walking with boldness. When you make seeking God your first act every morning, you are not only setting the tone for a single day, you are cultivating a habit that reshapes your life. It becomes a rhythm, a spiritual discipline that trains your mind, sharpens your focus, and strengthens your soul. Day by day, this practice builds a momentum that cannot be stopped. The doors of opportunity swing open. The burdens of yesterday lose their weight, and you move forward with a sense of purpose that is anchored in something eternal. It is here, in these intentional moments of seeking, that you discover the true power and presence of God in your life. And nothing can take that away. Divine alignment is the secret that separates ordinary days from extraordinary ones. It's not enough to simply go through the motions, to wake up and act on impulse, or to make decisions based solely on what seems convenient or urgent. Life is filled with choices, and each choice has the power to lead you toward favor or frustration, breakthrough, or breakdown. But when you align yourself with God, when you intentionally seek His direction before making a move, everything changes. Your steps become ordered, your words become weighty, and your actions carry purpose beyond your understanding. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you rushed into situations without seeking guidance and later wished you had paused? How many decisions, big or small, have led to unnecessary complications because they were made in haste, in fear, or in uncertainty? Divine alignment removes the guesswork. It is the compass that ensures you are walking in the path that was designed for you, the map that reveals the roads that lead to blessing rather than burden. When your heart, mind, and spirit are in harmony with God, you don't just survive the day, you thrive in it. Alignment is not passive. It requires engagement, focus, and surrender. It means saying, Lord, before I respond, before I react, before I pursue anything today, I choose to hear your voice. I choose to follow your direction. And when you do this, life begins to operate differently. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach now appear. Challenges that once felt insurmountable suddenly have solutions. Relationships that were strained find healing, and the doors that seemed permanently closed swing open. You begin to notice patterns of favor and protection that could never be attributed to chance alone. One of the most remarkable things about divine alignment is that it transforms not just the big moments, but the small ones too. The conversation you have with a colleague, the email you write, the decision you make about how to spend your time, all of these are impacted when you are in sync with God's direction. Choices that once led to regret now lead to results that reflect purpose and wisdom. Your energy is no longer wasted on battles that were never yours to fight, and your focus is sharpened to recognize the paths that lead to growth, provision, and peace. Moreover, divine alignment instills confidence and boldness. When you know that you are operating under divine guidance, you are no longer paralyzed by fear, doubt, or uncertainty. You can walk into situations knowing that every step is orchestrated, every word is empowered, and every action is backed by a force far greater than yourself. There is a peace that comes from this awareness, a clarity that removes hesitation, and a momentum that propels you forward, even when circumstances seem daunting. Ultimately, the practice of aligning with God transforms ordinary routines into powerful acts of purpose. It's the difference between drifting through life and walking in intentionality, between reacting to events and influencing outcomes. When your day begins in divine alignment, it sets a trajectory that multiplies your efforts, amplifies your influence, and positions you to walk in favor, protection, and breakthrough. It is not simply a good habit, it is the cornerstone of a life that is victorious, fruitful, and unstoppable. Too many people allow the noise of the world to determine the course of their day. Emails, messages, social media notifications, deadlines, responsibilities, they all compete for attention. And before you know it, the most important part of your life, the part that should guide everything else, has been ignored. But when you make a conscious choice to prioritize God over worldly distractions, something supernatural happens. Your day no longer begins with chaos and stress. It begins with clarity, purpose, and direction. Prioritizing God means intentionally putting Him first, not as an afterthought, not as a checkbox on a to-do list, but as the center of every decision, action, and thought. It means saying, Lord, you are my priority, and everything else will follow your lead. When you do this, distractions lose their power over you. The pressures that once caused anxiety and frustration become manageable because your focus is fixed on something eternal rather than temporary. You begin to operate from a place of authority rather than reaction. Consider this: the world will always demand your attention. There will always be responsibilities, obligations, and emergencies. But if God is not your first thought, if His voice is not the first guidance you seek, then your day is already being shaped by forces you cannot control. Prioritizing God is like setting your GPS before starting a journey. It ensures that you are moving in the right direction from the very beginning, rather than wandering aimlessly and arriving at the wrong destination. Prioritizing God also gives you discernment. When distractions arise, you begin to recognize what is important and what is trivial. You are able to distinguish between opportunities that are aligned with your purpose and those that are simply noise. You gain the wisdom to say no to things that will drain your energy, focus, and resources, and yes to things that will bring fruit, growth, and divine favor. It is this prioritization that ensures that your actions are intentional and your energy is invested wisely. Furthermore, prioritizing God over worldly distractions brings peace. There is a unique tranquility that comes when your heart is centered on Him. You are no longer tossed by every interruption, every urgent message, or every unexpected circumstance. Instead, you operate from a place of calm confidence, knowing that the one who holds your life in His hands is guiding every step. Your focus shifts from what is urgent to what is important, from what is fleeting to what is eternal. Finally, when God is your priority, the flow of your day changes. What once felt chaotic now feels orchestrated. Doors open at the right time, relationships flourish, and challenges are met with wisdom rather than panic. You walk in the reality that your day is not dictated by circumstance, but by divine design. By putting God first, you ensure that your time, energy, and attention are invested in what truly matters, and you position yourself to experience His power, presence, and favor in every aspect of your life. One of the most profound truths you will ever come to understand is that God's power is not just available when you are strong, it is made perfect when you are weak. So often we measure our potential and our impact by our own strength, our own understanding, and our own abilities. But here's the reality: the moment you realize that your limitations are not liabilities, but opportunities for God to move, everything changes. Weakness is not a setback, it is a stage for the manifestation of divine power. Think about it. When you feel inadequate, when you are overwhelmed by challenges, when the burdens of life seem too heavy to bear, those are the very moments that God wants to show up. The strength you lack is not a reason to give up. It is an invitation to lean into Him, to trust Him, and to allow His power to flow through you. The Bible says that His power is made perfect in weakness, and that means the less you rely on your own resources, the more room there is for his miracle working power to operate. Many people struggle because they want to fix everything on their own. They try to handle their problems with human wisdom, human effort, and human strength. And what usually happens? Frustration, exhaustion, and sometimes failure. But when you acknowledge your weakness and intentionally rely on God, you tap into a supernatural source that is limitless, unfailing, and eternal. This is not theory, this is practical, everyday reality. Weakness is the canvas on which God paints his masterpieces, and your life can become a testimony because of it. It's also important to recognize that embracing weakness does not mean embracing defeat. In fact, the opposite is true. When you surrender your limitations to God, you are not admitting failure. You are positioning yourself for victory. You are saying, I cannot do this on my own, but with you, all things are possible. That kind of humility opens doors for provision, guidance, and breakthroughs that would never have come if you had relied solely on your own abilities. The beauty of this truth is that it transforms how you view obstacles. Every challenge, every struggle, every situation that seems beyond your capacity becomes an opportunity for God to display his glory. Weakness becomes a stage for strength, doubt becomes a platform for faith, and insufficiency becomes the arena for supernatural provision. When you embrace your weakness as the place where God's power is unleashed, you no longer fear difficulties. You welcome them, knowing that they are the very circumstances in which his power is perfected. So the next time you feel inadequate, the next time life pushes you beyond what you believe you can handle, remember that this is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a moment where God's power will show up, where his strength will compensate for your weakness, and where you will rise higher than you ever imagined. Weakness is not your enemy. It is the very mechanism through which God demonstrates that nothing is impossible for those who trust in him. Why victory is not accidental, and it is certainly not random. Too many people live their lives reacting to circumstances, hoping for the best and expecting success without preparation. But the truth is, victory comes from intentional spiritual preparation. It is not enough to have talent, intelligence, or even ambition. Without preparation, without positioning yourself in alignment with God's presence and power, you leave your life open to setbacks, distractions, and missed opportunities. Spiritual preparation is the secret that empowers you to face challenges with confidence and emerge not just unscathed, but triumphant. Spiritual preparation begins the moment you decide to make God the first priority in your day. It's about creating a foundation that cannot be shaken. It's about arming yourself with prayer, declaring his promises over your life, and cultivating a mindset of faith that sees beyond the visible and trusts in the unseen. When you prepare spiritually, you are not merely hoping that things will work out. You are actively inviting divine intervention, positioning yourself to recognize opportunities and equipping your spirit to respond to challenges with wisdom and strength. Consider the difference between someone who wakes up without seeking God and someone who begins the day with deliberate spiritual focus. The first person faces difficulties with uncertainty, fear, and hesitation. Their decisions are reactive, their energy is scattered and their outcomes are uncertain. The second person, however, has prepared spiritually. Their mind is aligned, their heart is focused, and their spirit is empowered. They move through the day with authority, confidence, and discernment. Challenges that would have overwhelmed them now become opportunities to experience breakthrough. Obstacles transform into stepping stones. Their victories are not accidental. They are a direct result of preparation. Spiritual preparation also shapes your perspective. When you start your day anchored in God's presence, you begin to see challenges differently. Problems that once seemed impossible are now manageable because you are equipped with divine insight. You are able to respond rather than react, to act rather than hesitate, and to walk in faith rather than fear. Preparation cultivates resilience, patience, and clarity. It ensures that when life pushes back, you do not crumble under pressure. You rise with strength and confidence. Moreover, spiritual preparation brings consistency. Victory is not always about a single moment or a one-time breakthrough. It is about a lifestyle of alignment and readiness. When you prepare spiritually every day, you create a rhythm of success that builds momentum. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstance, and your achievements are no longer left to chance. Preparation ensures that your victories are repeatable, sustainable, and powerful. Ultimately, victory comes from being ready spiritually before the world demands it. It comes from creating a heart and mind attuned to God, from cultivating a spirit that is sensitive to guidance, and from intentionally arming yourself with prayer, faith, and focus. Spiritual preparation is the difference between merely surviving and truly thriving. It is the foundation on which every triumph is built, and the key to walking through life with authority, confidence, and unstoppable momentum. Consistency is the engine that drives transformation. Too many people desire change. They dream of breakthroughs and they long for growth, but they stop short when it comes to daily discipline. Transformation does not happen in a single moment of inspiration or a single act of faith. It is the product of repeated intentional action over time. When you make seeking God, inviting His presence, and walking in His power a daily practice, you build momentum that compounds, creating a life that is fundamentally different from the one you had yesterday. Daily practice is more than just routine. It is a commitment to position yourself for God's work in your life every single day. It means that even when you are tired, distracted, or discouraged, you show up before Him, ready to engage, ready to listen, ready to obey. It is this daily engagement that strengthens your spirit, sharpens your focus, and aligns your heart with divine purpose. The small, consistent acts of faith, prayer, reflection, gratitude, and surrender become the building blocks of a life that is resilient, empowered, and unstoppable. Think about it like this: a single drop of water cannot carve a canyon, but constant dripping over time can. So it is with spiritual practice. The moments you spend in God's presence each day, no matter how brief, accumulate into a powerful force that reshapes your life. Opportunities that seem distant become reachable. Obstacles that once blocked your path now crumble under the weight of consistent alignment. Your character grows, your faith deepens, and your vision becomes clearer. Daily practice transforms your ordinary moments into extraordinary milestones. Consistency also teaches patience and perseverance. Transformation does not always happen overnight. It is easy to become discouraged when results are not immediate, when life seems unchanged despite your efforts. But the one who is faithful every day, the one who continually seeks God's presence and power, discovers that the process itself is forming strength, resilience, and insight. What feels slow today is actually preparing you for a breakthrough tomorrow. What seems repetitive is actually refining you for greater impact. Every act of discipline compounds to create momentum that cannot be stopped. Moreover, consistent daily practice reinforces your identity in God. It reminds you who you are, whose you are, and what you are capable of through Him. You begin to see patterns of favor, provision, and protection that were not apparent before. Your life begins to reflect the transformation happening within your spirit. The habits you establish become the framework for a life that is no longer dictated by circumstance, but guided by purpose. Ultimately, transformation is not a single event. It is a process sustained by daily commitment. When you consistently prioritize God, seek His presence, and invite His power, you position yourself to experience a life of growth, victory, and purpose. Your ordinary days, when lived with intention, become extraordinary. Your small acts of faith, repeated over time, become the vehicle through which God reshapes your destiny. Consistency is the secret, the pathway, and the proof that lasting transformation is possible for anyone willing to show up every single day.